Rudy is quite a character.
He's a brilliant scientist, of course.
Really smart.
He's not maybe the most politically correct person.
He's a fantastic speaker.
Good mentor. Of course, clever.
Rigorous.
And he's much liked.
I think the big talent that you then need to have is to recognize when luck occurs and to pick it up and to go on with it.
Man can only learn by proceeding from the known to the unknown. The quotation is from the French physiologist Claude Bernard and dates back to 1865 in the introduction to his book, The Study of Experimental Medicine. This quotation comes close to summing up Professor Rudolf Zechner's work. With his teams in Graz, Austria, he discovered a new enzyme named adipose triglyceride lipase, ATGL, that degrades fat. It was indeed a new discovery, but above all, it formally demonstrated that in this field, conventional scientific wisdom was in error.
I was working on one of these fat catabolizing enzymes, and one day this guy Günther Hämmerle comes into my laboratory and says, "You know, Professor, I want to knock out a gene in the mouse. I don't care which gene it is. I just want to learn this technique." And so we decided, since we had knocked out already the lipoprotein lipase gene, that we would go for this one and only intracellular lipase that is responsible for the digestion of fat. We expected, you know, when we knock out this gene that the animals would become very obese, but then the opposite happened. And that was clear that this enzyme that has been around for many, many decades as the rate-limiting enzyme for fat digestion is not the correct one, and this made this discovery then in 2004 on ATGL, on adipose triglyceride lipase.
We're aware that it's an important discovery, but we, of course, didn't know all the implications it had afterwards. First, we of course thought that we have found a potent drug target to go about obesity or diabetes, but then we had to learn that ATGL is probably too strong to be a good drug target.
We also found then an activator of ATGL, CGI58. Without this activator, the enzyme is relatively inactive. So further on, it was found that human mutations in the genes for ATGL and CGI58 cause a rare genetic disease. And there are two versions of it, depending whether you lack the enzyme, ATGL, or you lack the co-activator, CGI58. So we were interested in the biochemical processes to really show that in the mouse you have the same phenotype. More recent work now focuses more on how does this fat catabolism affect other processes in the body.
Understanding and managing disorders such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular diseases. These are just some of the applications for this discovery of the mechanism by which our organism degrades fats. It's a subject that has always interested Rudolf Zechner, who built up and then carried on his career in his hometown as awareness of the importance of lipids metabolism continued to grow.
When we started in lipid research, this was a time when lipid research was unfashionable. In those days, it was much more important, you know, to clone genes, to study the regulation of transcription, to study the regulation of DNA replication, and all those things. And lipids were seen sort of a side product, although it was already then known that lipids are the basis of all cell membranes and intracellular membranes, so it's clear lipids are very, very essential molecules. It was kind of seen a little bit of a slimy mess. And that's why people didn't focus it. So it was easy in those days to start, to meet people, to enter the field, and eventually this field exploded now in the last 10 years because of all these problems with metabolic diseases like obesity and comorbidities like diabetes or cancer. So that right now it's extremely fashionable, which is good in one way, which is difficult for the young people, because for them now to enter this field requires much more than when I entered the field, when this was a small group of scientists worldwide that knew each other. Now, you go to these meetings and there are 2,000 people there, and if you're a young postdoc, how are you going to meet anybody?
In biosciences, there is one big place, Vienna, and compared to that, Graz is small. And one of the exceptions is biosciences. This is probably due to Rudi, who managed to focus a considerable fraction, not all, but a substantial fraction of the biosciences in Graz, not only at this university, but via collaborations also at the medical and technical universities, to focus that on lipid research. And that's brought visibility to this place. So Graz is now, in the lipid field, is visible.
A member of the Austrian Academy of Sciences, Rudolf Zechner is Professor of Biochemistry at the Institute of Molecular Biosciences, University of Graz. It's a place to do research, but also somewhere to pass on his knowledge and experience to the upcoming generations of scientists.
As a university, of course, teaching is guided by science and research, and this is very important for us, and we also have study programs that really are aligned to our research core areas.
If you're a university professor, you are also obliged to teach a certain degree, and you cannot get rid of this obligation totally. But even if I could, I wouldn't. Teaching is really a very, very important aspect of my professional life.
That's important also for the students to be involved in research projects very early, that they can see how research is performed and how you can evaluate the results. And so I think that there is a very close connection.
Takes his passion for biochemistry quite seriously, and he hopes that he can really engage young people with that same kind of passion.
He is able to explain complicated things in a very simple way. So whenever he gives lectures, or probably also in student lectures, everybody can understand what might be much more complicated than it is.
I'm considered as a relative tough teacher. My exams are not that simple, but I think I'm quite well respected. People or students know that I do this wholeheartedly, that teaching is an important part of me, and they can expect something from me, but I do expect something from them also.
Recently, Rudolf Zechner and his team showed how the ATGL enzyme and its protein coactivator CGI58 contributed to the development of cachexia, the uncontrolled loss of weight affecting cancer patients. Yet another application deriving from the discovery of this Austrian researcher who remains determined to push back still further the boundaries of his knowledge.
What is really amazing is that he more or less left his area now, or went beyond his usual horizon to go on to cancer research and into cachexia.
So we have already a close collaboration here in Graz with the Institute of Pathology of the Medical University. I mean, those are the cancer experts, and so everything is done in extremely close collaborations, because we understand the biochemical part of lipid biology very well, but we are really not cancer or cachexia experts, so we need this other expertise.
This is something I think which is special for a good scientist, to be able to look beyond what you do every day and what you really come from, because he's not a cancer specialist.
I wouldn't be surprised if another excitement would come out within the next few years, because he accomplished a great deal of grant money, and that's very important.
As a researcher, he also is, to me, kind of an unconventional guy. He has questioned things that will long be considered straight and easy. And he also, I would say, is not the one who systematically investigates one gene after the other, but he's rather somebody who trusts his intuition and searches really new pathways and paves new ways.
All of his work has opened new areas. They've always been connected. Whatever it is that they discover next, I think they'll be quite fluid in moving into new areas that become apparent through their results. So I think we'll see some surprises in the next few years.